Chapter 16. Vasco da Gama in India. One morning, when the voyage had lasted for about 19 days on the Indian Ocean, the pilot came to Vasco da Gama and said, "Captain, I am sure we are very near the coast of India. It would not surprise me if we should see land tomorrow morning." Early the next morning, everyone was on deck looking eagerly towards the east to catch the first view of land. A number of sailors were sitting on the maintops. Vasco da Gama was at his usual post on the quarterdeck. Suddenly, a loud cry came from the crew, "Land, land, land!" Soon after, Kanaka came running to Vasco da Gama and pointed with a trembling finger towards the horizon in the east. "Behold, Captain! The land of India." Vasco da Gama fell upon his knees thanking God with all his heart. It was almost afternoon when the ships approached close enough to see objects on the shore. They saw a good-sized town located in a bay with thatched houses and a number of fishing boats. Some of the boats were at anchor while others were moving about. The people of this town were greatly surprised to see the ships, and the fishing boats came quite near to examine them. At first, Vasco da Gama mistook this town for Calicut and was slightly disappointed. He had heard a great deal about the splendor of Calicut, its noble buildings, temples and riches. However, the pilot clarified that the town in sight was not Calicut but Kanana. "I know the country well. Be not discouraged, Captain. Calicut, the great city, is only 12 leagues away, southwards," he said. That evening, Vasco called a meeting with a few experienced members of the crew. He consulted with them about how to deal with the king of Calicut. The king of Calicut was known as the Zamorin in the trading world. He was the owner of the port of Calicut, that was a very important trading port in the east. The Arabs used this port to export goods to Persia and Europe. The Chinese also used this port regularly. At first, Vasco da Gama proposed to go on shore himself the next morning, present himself before the king and frankly state the purpose of his visit. But he was warned not to do so. He was told that if the king was hostile, no one could tell what he would do. The best way was to first demand hostages for his safety, as this was the custom of the East. Then Vasco and the other captains decided that they would tell the king of Calicut that the king of Portugal had sent out a great fleet of 50 ships, and that two ships had separated from the rest of the fleet in a storm. They would say that they had come to Calicut to await the arrival of the other ships. The next morning, a number of boats surrounded the two ships. In them were natives that seemed very curious to know who the Portuguese were and where they had come from. Among the boats were some fishing smacks. Vasco ordered his men to call the fishermen and offer to buy their fish. The native fishermen were delighted to trade. The sailors also told them the story which Vasco da Gama had constructed about the fleet of 50 ships. Their story soon reached the Zamorin. He told the fishermen to return to the ships and to find out all they could about the Portuguese guests. For 3 days nothing was done except trading with the fishermen. On the fourth day, however, a large boat came out. A messenger had come from the Zamorin. He carried a small round shield, some wooden sling and a short naked sword with an iron hilt. He spoke to Vasco da Gama through an interpreter from his boat. His message from the Zamorin was to ask who they were and what they wanted in Calicut. Vasco da Gama replied that he would gladly send his messenger to the Zamorin, who would speak on his behalf and answer all his questions. Thus, one of Vasco's trusted crew members went as a messenger and told the Zamorin the same story that Vasco had instructed him to tell. He added that the Portuguese had come to make peace and build friendship with the Zamorin. They would buy cargoes of pepper and spices with the rich cloths, gold and silver which they had brought with them. The Zamorin replied, "Tell Vasco da Gama that I will fill his ships with as much pepper and spices as he can carry with him." The return of the messenger with good news pleased the shipmates. They rejoiced at the prospect of obtaining the Zamorans' goodwill and a valuable cargo with which they could return to Portugal.